The United States is often seen as the land of opportunity, but like any country, it has its dark side. Today, we're diving into the 10 most dangerous places in the United States. These cities are known not only for their vibrant cultures and rich histories, but also for their high crime rates. Let's get into it. First up on our list is Chicago, a city known for its stunning skyline, deep dish pizza that could sink a small island, and sadly, a rather persistent crime problem. Now, Chicagoans, before you flood my inbox with angry emails about how the Magnificent Mile is perfectly safe, let's not bury our heads in the sand. Because, statistically speaking, Chicago has a crime rate that's enough to make even the most hardened New Yorker raise an eyebrow. With over 13,000 crimes per 100,000 people, it's safe to say that in Chicago, you're more likely to bump into a criminal than a decent hot dog vendor. And trust me, finding a decent hot dog in this city is like finding a sober Irishman on St. Patrick's Day. Now, we're not saying that the entire city is a no-go zone, but there are certain neighborhoods like West Garfield Park that have become synonymous with gang violence and crime. These areas are struggling, and it's a complex issue with no easy solutions. So, what's driving this crime wave in the Windy City? Well, it's a perfect storm of poverty, gang activity, and let's be honest, a police force that's been stretched thinner than a Chicago-style pizza crust. It's a recipe for disaster, and unfortunately, it's the residents of Chicago who are paying the price. Next up, we're heading down south to Atlanta, Georgia, a city known for its sweet tea, southern hospitality, and unfortunately, a crime rate that's sweeter than a pecan pie. Now, Atlanta is a city of contrasts. On one hand, you've got a city steeped in history and striving for progress. On the other hand, you've got a city grappling with a serious crime problem. And we're not just talking about jaywalking or public indecency, although I'm sure there's plenty of that too. We're talking about violent crimes, property crimes, and a general sense of unease that hangs over certain parts of the city like a humid summer day. In 2022 alone, Atlanta saw over 22,000 reported crimes. That's more crimes than there are Waffle Houses in the entire state of Georgia. And that's saying something because let's be honest, you can't throw a stone in Georgia without hitting a Waffle House. And while the city's overall crime rate has been steadily declining, there are still neighborhoods like Oakland City that remain hotbeds for criminal activity. These areas are often plagued by poverty, gang violence, and a lack of resources, creating a vicious cycle that's difficult to break. New Orleans, the Big Easy, famous for its jazz music, Mardi Gras celebrations, and, well, let's be honest, its rather relaxed relationship with open container laws. You'd think a city where you can legally walk around with a hurricane in hand would be a utopia. And don't get me wrong, the food is incredible, seriously. You haven't lived until you've had a proper po' boy, but behind the revelry and the beignets, there's a darker side to New Orleans. A side where the crime rate is about as spicy as a bowl of their gumbo. We're talking a city with a violent crime rate almost 4 times the national average. That's not just a statistic, folks, that's a recipe for disaster, and it's not like it's a well-distributed gumbo either. Certain areas like Central City and the 7th Ward are particularly affected. It's a real shame because these neighborhoods have so much to offer. Rich history, vibrant culture, and yet, walking around at night can feel like playing a real-life game of escape room. Except the stakes are much higher than just bragging rights. Okay, folks, let's talk about Cleveland, Ohio, the home of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, the Drew Carey Show, and, well, that's about it really, I kid. Cleveland has its charms, like its stunning location on Lake Erie, its passionate sports fans, and, okay, I'm really struggling here. The truth is, Cleveland has been through a rough patch. Its population has shrunk faster than a wool sweater in a hot dryer. And its crime rate, well, let's just say it's clinging on tighter than a Browns fan to a glimmer of hope. We're talking a city where you have a 1 in 17 chance of becoming a victim of crime. To put that in perspective, you're more likely to encounter a crime in Cleveland than you are to find a decent bagel outside of New York City. And while the city has made some strides in recent years, with revitalized neighborhoods and a growing tech scene, certain areas like the Scoville Avenue neighborhood remain about as welcoming as a Browns fan to a Steelers fan wearing a Sixburg shirt. All right, let's talk about Oakland, California, the land of perpetual sunshine, stunning views of the Bay Bridge, and, oh right, a crime rate that's higher than the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a tale of two cities, really. On one hand, you've got a thriving arts and culture scene, delicious food from all over the world, and a certain cool factor that makes Brooklyn hipsters weep into their avocado toast. It's diverse, it's vibrant, and it's got more character than a San Francisco sourdough bread bowl. But on the other hand, you've got a city grappling with a serious crime problem. And I'm not just talking about someone stealing your artisanal kombucha here. We're talking violent crime, property crime, and everything in between. It's enough to make even the most Zen Bay Area resident consider investing in a personal security detail. Now, Oakland isn't just sitting back and letting crime run rampant. They're trying. They really are. They've implemented community policing programs, invested in social services, and even tried to lure tech companies away from Silicon Valley with promises of cheaper rent and presumably a never-ending supply of artisanal coffee. But it's like trying to put out a wildfire with a garden hose. The roots of the problem run deep, from income inequality to gang violence to a lack of affordable housing that would make even a San Francisco tech bro blush. And let's not forget the elephant in the room, the Oakland Police Department's history of, shall we say, questionable practices. From racial profiling to excessive force, they've made more headlines for the wrong reasons than a certain former tech CEO who seems to have a thing for starting fights on social media. So, what's the verdict on Oakland? Well, it's complicated. It's a city with a lot to offer, but also a lot of challenges to overcome. If you're planning a visit, go for the food, the culture, and the views. But be sure to pack a healthy dose of street smarts and maybe a personal alarm, just in case. And at number 5, we find ourselves in St. Louis, Missouri, a city best known for its iconic Gateway Arch. You know, that giant gleaming testament to westward expansion. Turns out it's also a pretty good indicator of the direction crime seems to be heading there, too. Up, way up. Look, St. Louis has a lot to offer. Beautiful parks, a vibrant arts scene, and let's be honest, some truly exceptional toasted ravioli. But it's also struggling with a crime rate that's, frankly, enough to make you want to stay in and just order in. We're talking 87 crimes per 1,000 residents. To put that in perspective, that's like walking into a moderately sized grocery store and finding that 87 of those shoppers are about to commit a crime. And no, I'm not counting people who double coupon without authorization. This is serious stuff. The downtown area in particular seems to be a bit of a hotspot. Well, hotspot might be putting it mildly. More like a leave your valuables at home and maybe invest in a suit of armor kind of spot. Now, it's not like the good people of St. Louis are just sitting around, idly polishing their crime statistics trophies. There have been efforts to combat this, from increased police presence to community outreach programs, but much like that Leaning Tower in Pisa, it's a slow, uphill battle. And look, it's a complex issue with no easy solutions. Poverty, lack of opportunity, and systemic inequalities all play a role. But the fact remains, St. Louis is a city where you might want to think twice before leaving your car unlocked. Or, venturing out for a late-night toasted ravioli run. Which is a real shame because those toasted ravioli are something else. Seriously, if you ever find yourself in St. Louis and feeling brave, try them. But maybe, send a scout ahead first, just to be safe. Baltimore, Maryland, Charm City. Known for its beautiful harbor, its delicious crab cakes, and the enduring legacy of John Waters' wonderfully weird films. But sadly, like a bad batch of Old Bay seasoning, Baltimore has a bit of a dark side. And by dark side, I mean a violent crime rate of 1,922 per 100,000 residents. That's right, folks, Baltimore's crime rate is higher than a giraffe in a limbo contest. And trust me, nobody wants to see a giraffe attempt limbo. It's just awkward. While certain areas, like the Inner Harbor, are relatively safe and bustling with tourists, other neighborhoods like East Baltimore struggle with high crime rates. We're talking drug trafficking, gang violence, the works. It's enough to make even the bravest soul reach for their pepper spray and a copy of The Wire for guidance. And look, I know what you're thinking, this all sounds very bleak. Is there any hope for Baltimore? And to that, I say, well, hold on to your hats, because things are about to get cautiously optimistic. Because despite these challenges, Baltimore is a city that's actively fighting back. There are community initiatives, police reforms, and a whole lot of dedicated people working tirelessly to make their city safer. They're like the plucky underdog in a feel-good sports movie. The one where they train really hard, overcome adversity, and then win the big game, but not before learning a valuable lesson about teamwork and friendship. Yeah, it's kind of like that. But unlike a predictable sports movie, the outcome in Baltimore is still unwritten. It's going to take time, effort, and a whole lot of crab cakes to turn things around. But hey, if there's one thing I've learned from watching those Real Housewives marathons, it's that Baltimoreans are a resilient bunch. So, to the people of Baltimore, we see you, we appreciate you, and we're rooting for you. Just maybe lay off the limbo, okay? Leave that to the professionals or, the gazelles. Hold on to your hats, folks, because we're heading down south to Birmingham, Alabama, land of sweet tea, charming accents, and a history so complex it makes a plate of shrimp and grits look straightforward. Birmingham has a violent crime rate of 1,682 per 100,000 residents. In Birmingham, you're more likely to be a victim of violent crime than you are to find a decent bagel. Now, I'm not saying you can't enjoy yourself in Birmingham. They've got great barbecue, a burgeoning art scene, and enough history to make your head spin. But be aware of your surroundings, especially in areas like North Central Birmingham. Birmingham is not defined by its crime rate. Countless individuals and organizations are working tirelessly to make the city safer. Amidst the challenges, there are glimmers of hope. So if you do find yourself in the ham, enjoy the hospitality, and savor the barbecue. Memphis, the home of Graceland, the blues, and a crime rate that could make your hair stand on end. Memphis has a bit of a crime problem. It's currently sitting at a whopping 237% higher than the national average. That's not just a statistic, folks. That's a cry for help. Imagine trying to enjoy a plate of Memphis-style barbecue ribs and then, bam, you realize you've left your car unlocked. Suddenly, those ribs don't taste quite as good, do they? Certain areas like downtown and Parkway Village are practically begging for a visit from Batman. I'm not saying you're guaranteed to encounter a supervillain in a back alley, but I'm not saying it either. The city is working hard to combat crime, but it's a constant struggle. So, what can you do to avoid becoming another statistic in the Memphis Blues? Be extra vigilant about your surroundings. Avoid wandering around unfamiliar areas alone at night. Invest in a good travel guide. It can point you towards the best barbecue joints and areas to avoid after dark. Memphis has a rich history, incredible music, and finger-licking good food. Just remember to pack a healthy dose of common sense. And finally, we arrive at our number one spot, the city with the highest crime rate in the country, Detroit, Michigan. Once a symbol of American industrial might, Detroit has fallen on hard times, and crime has taken root. Detroit has history, culture, a vibrant art scene. Detroit is a city of resilience, with a spirit that refuses to be broken. But let's not sugarcoat things. The crime rate is a serious problem. Detroit, along with Flint, faces economic decline, poverty, and gang violence. But Detroit isn't just a statistic. It's a city full of people working tirelessly to turn things around. So, if you find yourself in the Motor City, how do you stay safe? First and foremost, exercise caution. Be aware of your surroundings. Stick to well-lit areas and consider using ride-sharing services. Remember, Detroit is more than just its crime rate. By supporting local businesses and engaging with the community, we can contribute to a brighter future for the Motor City. Well, folks, there you have it. The 10 most dangerous places in the United States for 2024. It's a sobering list, a stark reminder that even in the land of the free and the home of the brave, danger lurks in the shadows. But remember, these cities are more than just statistics. They're vibrant communities with their own unique stories, challenges, and triumphs. If you're planning on visiting or moving to any of these places, do your research, stay informed, and most importantly, be careful out there. And as always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos just like this. Stay safe, everyone.